I picked a couple of banding rods up and decided that I should do a video showing you some of the variations on the banding rods. Now, this is the fullerene seed pod that grows the fullerenes out of the pods on either side, or the tips of the pods. And then they all bunch up into a carbon nanotube and then condense and become a fiber or a rod. Now, most of these rods are much bigger than the scope housing, so they're going to move around. So the only way I can show these is to just drop the scope housing on them and get them to stop moving and get a shot of that area. I can't give you a full length shot of these going from one end to the other. Like, I'll show you on this one. This is one rod. Maybe I can do some of these like that. And you see, the tissue folds would be either side of that center line, which would be the backfill, and both those molded lines either side of the backfill would be clamping the tissue folds closed. And then that solidifies and becomes a rod clamping those tissue folds. And that's the mobility issues. Stiffness, muscle pains, aches, that type of thing. I got this big branching fullerene seed pod. It's got a couple of them here. That's the head, ready to spit out the monster fullerene tentacles once they mature after incubation. This is how it starts growing the other nodes and strands. And down at the base here, they all come together and become a much bigger based seed pod. Okay, this is the fibers. Fiber network that flows, sews them all together or embeds them in the mesh and connects all the electrical signals to all of these different nano components. There's a rod you can see up top there running through it. And this is another rod. Again, different clamps, different closings. This one was tighter on the bottom. The other one probably had many more tissue folds in it. Here's another one. It's got carbon inside the tissue fold, and it's got the fibers and all. See, this is what comes out of these seed pods when they grow and the seed pods incubate. It's the first time I've seen the liquid carbon in there, or what looks like it was liquid carbon. And there's the seed pod connector. This is a black hard wire. This is morphing into metal at this point. This feels stiff like a wire and feels like it's metal. That's one of the banding rods that eventually get morphed out of the hydrogel and all the tissue folds. Here's another chunk. What do we got here? This is a combination of the rods and fibers all bunched together and stuck together. The seed pod there, the rod, is all broken up from being utilized by all these fiber rods here that are sprouting from it and becoming the hard bands. These actually become wires or thick crystalline fiber optic cables. So that's one. Let's see what this pod is on here. There's a rod connected to it. There we go. We can see these components. All part of a banding rod. Single banding rod. This one is about 3 inches long. This is crazy. And it's been obviously well developed for a long time. It actually looks like a piece of wood, but it's not. It's the polymer crystallizing and solidifying. And that's the same as the other banding rods. You can see the molded shapes. The glowing part in the middle, that line, that is where the formulas are dissolving it. You can see the fullerene draped across it halfway in the frame at the top. And these are all morphologies out of this. There's a rod that's broken open, full of carbon, which will be morphing. There we go, back again. Briefly, look at the inside there. A lot of different structure. As the factory builds. I got a couple more here I'm going to do and then shut this down. This is the long fibers twisting and wrapping together into a long cord of fiber optic cables. There's some of the gland overflow. The spongy yellow stuff that looks porous is from around the glands. That's how thick these fibers are, and they're fiber optic cables. Without the hydrogel on them, and when they finish morphing there, they're totally crystal clear. Here's another rod, different state, different stage. There's a slab of the fibers with the carbon nodes. Now that looks like a barium. It was actually brownish. Look at that root. That's crazy. And all of this grows out of there. See if I can get her back in frame here. This is unique. I haven't seen that much structure in a root. Here's the other end of it. And I got one big flat rod here I'll show you, and that's it. And we're running 10 minutes on this one. But it shows you the different rods and how they clamp the tissue, sew it together with the fiber optic cables, which act as a fiberglass mesh over the body out of fiber optic cables, transferring your signals around and throwing the body out of metabolic sync. So that's it. I could go on forever with these. I only grabbed a few out of a couple of bowls here in front of me and added to the ones I just picked. So that's it for this one.